we can't make plans for the future. It's good to have long-term goals, absolutely, but be present in the now and understand that those long-term goals are, they're just words on a paper unless you are doing the things now to make sure that those long-term goals, come to life.
What's up, good people? Welcome to season 3 of the Dear Young Athlete podcast, where we talk to coaches and athletes about their journeys and what advice they would have for a younger version of themselves. I'm your host, Jacob Thompson. I am a speaker, author, recording artist, content creator, rare disease advocate, and an aspiring Paralympian. If you want to hear my story, check out season 1, episode 1. But enough about me. Let's meet our guest. Today, I am joined by a very special guest. The man I get to speak with, he is a husband, he is a father, he's a former collegiate wrestler, the first wrestling coach that we've had on the podcast. He is a head wrestling coach. He placed 2 times in state and high school. You don't want to mess with them. He was the assistant coach of the year for his section some years back, but above all that, he is a man of God, he is a man of faith, and he is making an impact. So I can't wait to dive into his story. Without further ado, Zach Hansen. What's happening?
Hey, thank you so much for having me. It's an honor and a privilege for sure.
Yeah, well, I'm excited. So let's jump right in. You've obviously had a great wrestling career that we'll hear about. You're currently a head coach, but where did it all begin for you? How'd you fall in love with playing sports?
Yeah, well, it all began, I would say, with my family. I'm one of 6 boys, a family of all boys, and we're all 2 years apart roughly. So we grew up just playing sports and being competitive with each other all the time. A lot of backyard football games, wrestling around in our living room and basement, bedrooms, what have you. So just constantly competing and being active and wanting to do things. We all had very similar interests, which I think helped. And of course, we all just love to compete and kind of have bragging rights over each other as siblings constantly do. So I would say my love for athletics just kind of started at a young age. My mom actually is a really big Minnesota Vikings fan. Like, she's kind of a diehard, if you will, where she in high school even would cut out the sports clippings of the Vikings and put them in a cool little book and whatnot. And she still actually has those, which is really funny. But she's a diehard Vikings fan, so she loves watching football with us too. So my dad wrestled in high school and a little bit in college at the junior college level, and has coached us all throughout myself and my brother's careers from a young age in youth, even in middle school and in high school as well. So yeah, it's always been around sports and just love what they kind of give you in life lessons, and just there's a lot of fun.
Yeah. Where do you fall in that 6 boys?
I am number 2.
Nice.
So a lot of people so I'm the second oldest. There were so many of us that people would kind of just call us by numbers because it was hard to remember names because they'd always kind of get it wrong. So it was a running joke that we would call each other by the number of when we came. So if the younger brothers were getting in trouble, we'd kind of joke like, "Oh, mom, that was 4, 5, and 6. They were the ones goofing around. Like, that wasn't us." So I'm the second oldest of the boys.
Fun. So I have 2 little boys, 3 and 2. and they
Awesome.
are rambunctious. And I cannot imagine multiplying that by three.
Yeah.
You must have drove your parents crazy, but that's awesome.
Yeah.
So mom's a Vikings fan, dad is a wrestler. What do you end up kind of pursuing in high school?
Yeah. So I was a little undersized. I still love football to this day. I've coached some ninth grade football, even at the middle school level as well. So I love the sport of football. I'm a huge Vikings fan as well. But um, as I was growing up, I was a little bit undersized, so playing time didn't come easy for me. Um, so wrestling was a great sport where size doesn't really matter because you're always going to compete against someone that's your size. So I found more success wrestling at a young age. And as I got older, I just decided to kind of make that a focal point once I hit high school. I still played football, more so on the bench, second or third string guy, but um, wrestling was my go-to where, I could kind of truly excel and, kind of control my own destiny, if that makes any sense, as far as, wrestling is more of a one-on-one sport where football, you got, 10 other guys, on your side that need to do their job in order to be successful. Where in wrestling, if you want to be successful, it kind of falls on your shoulders. So that's what I really love about that sport. And that's why I kind of chose to pursue it in high school.
Yeah, yeah, and I never wrestled, but my brother, um, he went to state, and my dad was a state champ a million
Awesome.
years ago. But talking to wrestlers, it really is. It's not for the faint of heart. When you lose, you can't really blame anyone, right? And when you win, it's really high. When you lose, you don't lose as a team, right? You lose as an individual, and that's got to be hard. I'm sure we'll get into that a little more, but tell us a little bit about your high school career, kind of what weight classes each year you were, and how it went for you.
Yeah. So my ninth grade year in high school, like I said, I was undersized. I was a smaller kid. So I was actually a backup to my older brother. So I was mostly junior varsity my ninth grade year. And I was okay with it for a couple reasons. One, he was my older brother, and two, he was ended up being the state champion that year at that weight class. So my buddies and teammates would always joke like, "Oh, why don't you, try to beat him in a challenge match?" I'm like, "Well, he's gonna be a state champion, so it's gonna be hard to beat." Plus his that older brother mentality. So I was, mostly a JV guy my ninth grade year, but I got to wrestle a few varsity matches. I think I wrestled a handful of varsity matches, got a little experience there. But then sophomore year is when I kind of was able to step into the varsity role. Um, had a good season. Was one match away from play or qualifying for the state tournament. So for wrestling, in each section you have to be first or second place in order to get to the state tournament. I think I won like 30 some matches that year as a sophomore at 103 was the weight class. So I again was a small guy. Not that small anymore, thankfully. Um, but yeah, so 103 was the weight class. Took third at sections, lost in a true second match is what it's called to try to get to the state tournament. Against a tough opponent from Farmington, actually, which is where I live, which is kind of funny, full circle a little bit. Um, and then my junior year, again, was at the same weight class, but I was a little bit bigger. Where I know the whole thing with wrestlers, that whole cutting weight thing comes into play. I was kind of more in between weight classes. The next weight class up was 112, so I was a little bit small for that. And I always tell my wrestlers too, like once you get in really good shape through wrestling practice and the training that we do, some of that what we call water weight just kind of starts to come off, and you just get into really good shape, and you're still eating right. but you are trimmer because you just have less body fat. So that was the case my junior year. Qualified for state, to go to state that year, which is awesome. And I actually made it to the semifinals of the state tournament my first trip, which was fantastic. Lost a heartbreaker in the semis to make the state finals, but I bounced back to make it to the third place match, and then lost a tough match for third against a kid from Apple Valley, which is national power in wrestling. Everyone knows who they are.
Yeah.
So I ended up placing fourth my junior year. Then I came back senior year, bigger, not too much bigger, but wrestled the 112 weight class. Had a little bit of injuries. I tore my meniscus actually playing football towards the end of the season. Had to have meniscus surgery, so I missed kind of the first half of my senior year for wrestling. Came back though, ended up qualifying for state again. First time I actually won sections. I upset my rival from Owatonna, which was pretty fun. He was actually a returning state champion.
Wow.
So beating him was one of my career highlights in high school for sure. And then I had a tough first round match at the state tournament, ended up losing that one, which was a hard pill to swallow for me because I had big aspirations to get to that state title match, making it to the state semis the year before. In my mind, I was thinking, all right, you're going to get there again. This time you're going to take the next step. So I kind of actually, to be honest, looked past my first round opponent, which is a, a big no-no,
Yeah.
in any athletic event. So I got beat. You could call it an upset first round. Luckily, I got to come back in the wrestlebacks, and I kind of flipped the switch, so to speak, and decided I'm not losing again at this tournament. And I won 4 straight matches to take third place my senior year, which was a really good achievement for me. So that was my career. I think I finished with over 95 career wins, which is not bad considering I would have liked to get over 100, but that senior year, missing half the season, I think I missed a good 15, 20 matches, which was a bummer. But I had pretty good success, not the best accolades, but still nothing to be ashamed about, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you had just beat the former state champ, so you're probably feeling like, yeah, you got it in the bag, and that's a dangerous place, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's funny because like going into it, he was kind of like the top dog. He was ranked number one. He had beaten me twice throughout the season. Um, so I knew that if I wanted to, be a state champion, he was the guy I had to beat. So when I beat him in our section, I kind of had that mindset of like, all right, like, I'm gonna do it. And when the brackets came out, I saw my first round opponent. In my mind, I just I pushed past it because I wasn't looking at, my next opponent. I was looking for that kid from Owatonna again because I knew I'd probably see him in the finals. So I wasn't even concerned about that, which, like you said, is very dangerous and just not very smart thing to do. And I know I'm not the only one who's done that before. Athletes I've talked to before, not only in wrestling but other sports, talk about that all the time. When you look past an opponent and don't, have respect for them and understand that you have to, it's one match at a time or one game at a time, one play at a time kind of mindset. Bad things can happen real fast, and unfortunately that did. But it was a lesson learned, and that's what I love about the sport of wrestling too. Is every single match and situation is a lesson that you can learn from and become better for it.
Yeah, definitely. So 103 and 112, you weren't joking when you said you were a little small.
Yeah, I was very
and
small.
and football might have been a little hard.
Yeah.
So what is the from there, what is the college search kind of look like for you?
Yeah. So I got some interest from some Division 3 schools. I think only one Division 2 school was looking at me, Minnesota State Mankato, which is a rich tradition in wrestling too. And my older brother, Josh, who was the state champion his junior year, He was already at Augsburg College up here in the Twin Cities, which is a national power in the Division III realm for wrestling. They had already won, I believe, at that time, 8 or 9 national championships. So they were kind of the top dog in Division III, and they were even, sometimes better than some Division II schools. So I was interested in them a lot. So when I went on my visits, I growing up in a small town, Robert Lee. I kind of wanted a different atmosphere, kind of put myself in a different situation. With Minnesota State Mankato, like I've been to Mankato a lot. It's not too far from Robert Lee. I wanted to be a little bit further from home, just kind of to branch out. And then with other schools like Luther College, it's another small town kind of feel, which it's fine. It's a beautiful campus, nothing bad to say about them. But I was just looking for something new. And Augsburg being right downtown Minneapolis, it just had with the U of M being across the river. The opportunities were kind of endless for me in that regard. So I knew I would get a really good education there, and I would be a part of a really powerhouse program as far as wrestling goes. So, and then, you're in the Twin Cities, which, opportunities are endless as far as compared down in Upper Lee. Nothing against my hometown, but that's just how it is with, the Twin Cities. So, I ended up going to Augsburg College. I decided pretty quick, actually, my senior year that's where I wanted to go and continue my educational and athletic career.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like to wrestle in high school, that's one thing, but to do it in college, you have to really love it because you probably said no to a lot of, you know, just distractions to actually wrestle in college. So tell us a little bit about um that college journey and being on the team and how that went for you. Hey, if you are enjoying this podcast, I need you to do two things. One, go on whatever platform that you're on and follow the podcast. Rate us and review us. This will help the algorithm and help this podcast reach more people. So thank you. Then I want you to head to 1020words.com/DYA. TEN20words.com/DYA. Check out our merchandise. We got hoodies, crew necks, sweatshorts, t-shirts, anything that you would want. Get some super comfy, stylish apparel and use code all caps DYA20 and take 20% off. Follow us on social media, Instagram at Dear Young Athlete, or on TikTok and Instagram, my account is at 1020words. If you're interested in being on the podcast or bringing Dear Young Athlete to your school, team, or group, simply head to the website and click the button that says Bring DYA to your team, school, or group, and send me an email, and I will look forward to connecting with you. Now, let's get back to the episode.
Yeah. Yes, like you said, wrestling high school is one thing. It's definitely tough, but college is a completely different beast. It's eye-opening, that's for sure. It was, it's intense. No one's gonna feel sorry for you if you're feeling a little down or whatnot. They're just, it's always looking to improve. Augsburg's mantra there was 1% improvement each and every day, which I've ended up falling in love with. But right away, I'm like, I don't get what this kind of means. But yeah, it was intense, a lot of workouts. It's a big time commitment. We did 3 workouts a day, a morning lift, run, and practice. So, I mean, you got to try to schedule your classes around that too. So, yeah, it's a lot, from basically the start of October to the end of March, you're on and doing training, whether it's off-season training, in-season training. A lot of workouts, a lot of rehabbing. I actually tore my meniscus 3 other times while wrestling in college. Just wrestling in college it's a different beast. It's a lot harder. The competition level, is a lot harder because everyone in your wrestling room, has accolades that I had, coming out of high school. They were state place winners, state champions, and they all want to be the guy. So if you want to be the guy, you got to beat all those studs as well. So constant, hardcore battles. I remember one specific practice. My partner, who I was good friends with, we were getting kind of heated a little bit, and we had some exercise bikes, off to the side. And he got so mad that he just kind of threw me into the exercise bikes, and it kind of shocked me. I'm like, "What's going on?" And he continued to wrestle me. So we kind of were wrestling on top of some other exercise equipment, not even on a mat anymore. But that's just kind of level of intensity that was expected there. And in college was just that you wrestle no matter what. Like there's no tapping out or quitting. Like you go until we say you're done, kind of thing. But yeah, I loved it. There was actually a little bit my sophomore year where I kind of was. I don't know if I want to say getting sick of it, but I just didn't have the right mindset. I had a negative mindset about things. I was disappointed with not being the starter because some transfers came in, and I felt like the coaches were, kind of not being fair with that, and kind of like that guy a little bit more because he came from the University of Minnesota, so he was a D1 athlete. They play a little favoritism, which I didn't care for. So I kind of just, instead of sucking it up and working harder, I just decided that I was going to kind of be mopey about it, be immature about it. And thankfully, we have a fellowship of Christian athletes, which I'm sure you know all about. John Peterson, who works with a lot of wrestling teams across the country. He actually came in and started doing Bible study with us guys and anyone who's interested. And with my background, being a Christian and whatnot, I was very interested. And when I started meeting with him, he kind of made me realize how childish I was being, and just, being kind of selfish and self-centered, and not focusing on all the good things that, wrestling has gifted me in my life with the friendships, relationships, and, all those life lessons that it gives you. I was taking those for granted just because I didn't like where I was at, not being the guy.
Yeah.
So he helped kind of flipped, turn my mindset around where there was a point in my sophomore year where I was thinking, man, I don't think I want to finish, wrestling in college. I think I want to be done after this season. But thankfully I didn't make that poor choice, and I ended up, sticking with it and finishing my last 2 years of college, on the wrestling team. Got to be a part of a 10th national team title, which was awesome. Never got to be the guy, just with injuries and other things that kind of happened. But I was able to be a part of a national championship team. I got a national championship ring, and the friendships that I made through those guys, just I still hang out with them to this day. We all have families and kids now, and it's kind of come around full circle where they're coaching their young kids, and hopefully I'll be coaching my kids someday. So yeah, we still get together all the time. So yeah, that was my college journey as far as wrestling goes.
Yeah. I think it's pretty cool, as I'm hearing your story. You've got injuries, you've got kind of that disappointing loss in the state tournament, and then you've got this experience like with the attitude and not getting to have it go how you wanted. And I think when you're in that moment, it's so hard to deal with all those things, right? But when you step back and see the bigger picture, to me it sounds like all those challenges are probably pivotal in you being a coach. Like you have all those experiences that you can share, and you can empathize with players who maybe are disappointed with their position, or they're injured or what have you. And I think at school we gotta look back on the journey and see, like, okay, that may have sucked at the time, but if you don't give up and you keep pressing in, like, it can turn out to be something good.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, that's one thing that I really took away when met with John Peterson. He kind of put it in my mindset that God puts you through these trials as a test, and He doesn't put you through any of these trials thinking that it's gonna completely consume you and overwhelm you to the point where you just want to give up. He's doing it because He wants you to lean into Him and His strength and His power, everything that He can do for you, and knowing that you can't do it all on your own. And it's just only going to make you stronger. It's going to make you a better person, and and that's something that I, really took to heart and kind of fell in love with, and knowing that, you know, not being the guy that doesn't define who I am. I'm defined in who I am as a Christian, knowing that Jesus Christ is my Lord and Savior, and how I am as a husband, how I am as a father, how I am as a coach, and how I can impact those people that I care about and truly love in my life, and make a difference in their life is what more defines me than any trophy or award I ever won as an athlete. So
Mm.
yeah, it is
Yeah.
hard in those moments, for sure, but it's always nice to step back and kind of look at, okay, well, those things happen for a reason, and it's to make you better and to get you to maybe be an inspiration to someone else who's going through the
Yeah.
same thing or something similar in life.
Yeah. And I think you only get there if you press into it, and if I feel like we have this choice in these difficult times and situations. Are we gonna get better from it, and are we gonna learn from it? So it's not like, oh, if you go through something you're automatically gonna be better. But that would be my encouragement to anyone hearing this, is like, you have to choose and go after that. None of us are perfect, but when you go through these things, like, you gotta you gotta have that perseverance to get to that place where you can look back and say that.
Yeah. Yeah, that's yeah, I mean, like you said, we do have a choice. When I was coaching as an assistant in Woodbury, our head coach, Justin Smith, would always kind of tell our athletes, like, you always have a choice what to do here. Like, you can either improve and get better or get worse. There is no staying the same. And that's kind of true. Like, people say, well, I'm just going to kind of, like, I'm content with where I'm at, so I just want to kind of stay in this place. Well, that's not really true, because that's not how life works. Like, you know, every choice you make has a good and a bad to it. So I think I always kind of liked how he would put that to our athletes, because it made them truly think about, like, all right, where do I want to go from here? Do I want to make the hard choice to, dig deep and continue to improve? Or am I going to take maybe the easy way out and then look back and have regrets because, I didn't get better for it. I kind of got worse, and now things are going in a downward spiral instead of, trending upward.
Hmm. Yeah, I like that. I think I've heard it, like you're a car on a hill, and the moment that you stop going up, you start rolling back down. You
Yeah.
can't just stay. And I think that's a really good kind of perspective. The other thing I wanted to ask you about wrestling is, did you have to cut, you mentioned it a little, but did you have to cut weight, and kind of what was that like for you, Um, I feel like some people it's miserable, some people it's not a big deal. Some people get done cutting weight and then get overweight. So it's like what was your experience there?
Yeah. So I mean, I did, you could say cut weight. In college, I continued to grow. So it made it harder each and every year. They put you on a pretty heavy lifting program. So, you're going to get bigger and stronger. So my junior and senior year, um, were actually the most I cut in wrestling. But they're actually ended up being the easiest because I finally got smart about it, and it was more about managing my weight, and putting the good things in my body, doing things the right way. Whereas my sophomore and freshman year in college, I was kind of taking the shortcuts, skipping a meal just because I didn't want to do an extra workout kind of thing,
Hmm.
which wasn't very smart because your body needs fuel. So yeah, I would say it was there were times when it was hard, definitely. But it's something that you can manage and figure out, as long as you're doing it the right way. Every coach that I've ever had in my experience, kind of has gone through the same thing, and they would always kind of give their knowledge as far as what foods they would put in put in their body. So you got to cut out the sweets, the pops, the candies, all that kind of bad stuff for you. And you got to your body needs the protein, it needs some of the carbohydrates to really continue to perform at that high level. So yeah, so we would come up with meal plans. Our college wrestling coach had meal plans for us, which gave us options, knowing like you can still have beefs, you can still have your steak, your chicken, all that kind of good stuff. But you just kind of wean out all the extras.
Hmm.
If you're gonna have a chicken breast, don't put a bunch of mustard on it with two slices of cheese and the thick bun. Like, just
Right.
a nice chicken breast, and add a little bit more veggies on the side, or a little bit, an extra fruit here or there or something like that.
Yeah.
So yeah, there were times where it was hard, but it wasn't to the point where like I felt miserable. Like, there were a couple of times, when you're sitting in the hotel room the night before weigh-in, where all you're thinking about is, man, I just want to just open up my cooler and just go to town on all that food in there. But it wasn't ever a thing where I, just felt miserable constantly.
Yeah.
I know a bunch of teammates that sadly they were miserable, and it showed in their performance. It showed in just their overall attitude, in class, and even just, in social events, just, always negative and just kind of ornery, in a bad mood, just because they were miserable. But I never truly got that bad, I don't feel like. And I always, as a coach now, I always tell my athletes, because I know a lot of them worry about that, and I say, hey, I don't really believe in that. Like, your body needs, at least three solid meals a day. So as long as you're putting the right things in your body and you're working extra hard, like, you will naturally lose weight. Like, I had an athlete who came in at 320 as a heavyweight. He's too big because 285 is the heaviest you can be in high school, and he was all worried, like, well, what's the point, coach? I'm not able to wrestle. I said, all right, well, I said, you're not in shape yet. Like, right now you're in football shape, which is different than wrestling shape. Football, you get breaks in between every play, whatnot. Wrestling, there's no breaks. It's go time for 6 straight minutes. And then there's a little downtime, but then you got to go again. So I would say within a week and a half of the season, he was down to 280, and he was still eating the same amount of food he had been eating all year. And his eyes got big, and he's like, coach, he's like, I'm on weight. And I'm like, I told you, that's just that extra body weight you were carrying around, that now that you're in really good shape, it just kind of fell off, and it's going to stay off. And he's now graduated and plays football in college, so I'm sure he's back up in the 300s, just because he's a big lineman. But yeah, he was able to maintain that weight all season, never had any issues. And I always have parents who get ornery with me as a coach, saying, "Oh, my son said they can't eat dinner with us." I'm like, I never said that. they're making that choice. But yeah, he never missed a meal for sure. I mean, he was always snacking and munching on things. So yeah, if you do it the right way, the cutting weight shouldn't be an issue ever.
Yeah.
And make that choice to, I guess, sacrifice eating. I don't approve of that, nor do I, encourage it at all. I just kind of tell them, like, it's going to catch up with you eventually, because you're going to get to the point where your body is so drained where you're not going to be able to compete at the level that you want. So
Mm. Yeah, I think that's cool and a good perspective because there's a healthy way to do it and it still requires discipline. And if you take that into life, it's like there are things that you can do to improve, whether it be your health or your career or whatever, your marriage. Um, and like you can do it and be healthy. And kind of like you're saying, it's almost inevitable that you improve if you take the steps. Like that guy, if you just show up and do the workouts, it's going to be inevitable for you to not lose this weight. And I really like that. I think it's a great perspective. Um, if you can bring us from the senior year in college wrestling
yep.
to becoming a coach, tell us kind of how you became a coach and what being a coach means to you. Hey, are you a high school or college athlete looking to use social media to share your faith in Christ? If so, I would love to personally connect with you and tell you about our brand ambassador program, where we can get you hooked up with some of our merchandise to rep on your social media platforms, and we can get you hooked up with a coupon code for your audience where you earn commission on any sales that come from your platform. Head to our website and click the button that says Become a Brand Ambassador. I look forward to connecting with you, and let's spread the good news together and do it in style.
Yeah, absolutely. So in college, to make a little extra money, the spring, there's what's called freestyle wrestling, which is the Olympic style wrestling that people see, during the Olympic years. So that usually runs in the spring after our collegiate season is over, and a lot of clubs in the cities, would be looking for coaches. So I actually started doing that just to make extra money on the side, plus growing up with, a bunch of younger brothers, you kind of naturally coach them, growing up. So there's times where I was coaching my little brothers, the youngest ones, when they were youth wrestling too. So I started coaching the freestyle club stuff. I would say I think it actually started my freshman year. Yeah. So it was just, a couple nights a week. And, a couple Saturdays, in the springtime, just going and helping out. And those kids, they really like seeing you there. You're kind of a rock star in their eyes, so to speak, so it felt good to give back. And yeah, I just kind of fell in love with that. And through doing that is where I actually met Justin Smith, who was the head wrestling coach at Woodbury High School here in Woodbury, Minnesota. And he actually asked me, he's like, "Hey, what are your plans after graduation and this and that?" And I had gotten my education license, so I was like, "Well, I'm just gonna look for a teaching job and kind of go from there." And he's like, "All right, well," he's like, "if you ever want to coach wrestling," he's like, "we got an opportunity for you," and he's like, "We'd love to have you." And he helped me kind of get my foot in the door in that district, so I ended up getting my first teaching job over in the Woodbury School District. And yeah, started helping coaching high school wrestling, pretty much right out of college.
Mm.
So yeah, it it means a lot to me to give back to a sport that gave me so much. Um, so that's why I love doing it. Knowing that um, wrestling is so unique in all the sports realm compared to other sports. Like I know football and baseball and other team focal sports. It's all about teamwork and bonding and working together, which is fantastic. But wrestling, it's more so like the individual determination, the drive, the perseverance. Being someone of it, being a man of integrity. When things are looking good, it's easy to, do that kind of stuff. But when things are looking bad and things aren't going so well, like, how are you going to react and respond to it? You can't look around to your teammates and say, well, kind of point the finger and play the, blame game. It's, you got to look at the mirror and point the finger right back at you. So, yeah, I just fell in love with the process of being a coach and seeing my athletes find success. Just it actually made me more excited than any win I ever got. As a college wrestler and even a high school wrestler. I got more excited seeing my kids, win a match and jump for joy and just screaming excitement kind of thing. So yeah, I just kind of fell in love with that whole process and everything that coaching kind of gives as far as helping others, pursue their goals and dreams and seeing those, goals come to life, or if they don't come to life, just kind of seeing them as they, leave high school, attack a new set of goals that they have for their lives as far as, where they're going to go to college, what kind of career they're going to get, and, what kind of man they're going to become. I always tell my athletes now that, I care about more about the person you become than the athlete that are, or how many matches you win. Like, I don't, those are the awards that at the end of the day people forget about, but they'll never forget the kind of person you are and the impact that you made on your community and on the others around you. So
Mm. Yeah, that's so good. I probably have said this a million times on the podcast, but it's just always my encouragement for people to make the most of their current season, because like you went to just coach at this weekend thing and make a little money, but you met someone there that ended up getting you a coaching job and a teaching job and has led you now to become a head coach. And to the young people listening, like, you can't wait till you get older to start being the type of person that people would want to hire or want to give opportunities, because usually it's people that have been with you and known you that can open a door for you. And like the time is right now to I like to just challenge people, like, would you recommend you? Would you hire you? It's like you can't just flip that switch. And I think kind of your journey as a coach speaks to that.
yeah, yeah, no, I agree with you. I tell my athletes that constantly. Every day practice, is an opportunity to get better. Every match is an opportunity to go out there and compete. Um, and you got to take advantage of those opportunities, because you never know when those opportunities are gonna slip away. I give an example of one of my athletes who, as a junior, had great goals, and one of his goals was to make it to the state tournament, and he did that. And I kind of, when talking to them before the state tournament, I'm like, hey man, you have an opportunity to get step up on that podium and get a state medal. Like, that's a big deal. Like, you're only a junior, so we can continue to kind of work our way up the podium, so to speak. And he kind of nodded with it, but I could kind of tell, I don't think it really sunk in that like this was a new opportunity for him. Um, so he ended up not placing at state that year. And after his last match, when he lost to not place, he walked off the mat and he told me and our assistant coach, he's like, it's okay. It's okay. Next year I'll get it. And we're like, oh, yeah, it's a good mindset to have. But then, sad to say, his senior year, he had a season-ending injury that took away that next year opportunity that he had kind of been thinking about, looking ahead into the future. And I bring that up not to, put that athlete down or anything, but just to get my current athletes to understand that, we can't make plans for the future. It's good to have long-term goals, absolutely. But be present in the now and understand that those long-term goals are, they're just words on a paper unless you are doing the things now to make sure that those long-term goals, come to life. You got to make sure that you're attacking, action steps in these short-term daily goals in order to achieve those long-term goals. You can't, I can't say as a coach that I'm going to have 20 state champions, but then not focus on right now getting each and every athlete better and just hoping that one day a really good gifted athlete walks in my door and starts just winning titles. That's just kind of foolish. It's not a smart way to do things. So I try to tell my athletes that all the time, like, don't say, well, there's always another time, coach. Well, you never know. There might not be another time. Injuries happen, things happen in life, sicknesses, illnesses, family crises that come up. Things happen all the time that, are outside of your control. What you can control is the opportunity that you have in front of you and making the most of it and becoming better for it.
Mm. Amen. Amen. So to transition a little bit, you've alluded sort of to kind of seeing how God has used things in your life, being part of FCA. If you can speak to some of your spiritual journey and significant moments or aspects of what has molded your faith and how you see your faith kind of impacting you now.
Yeah. So my faith journey is kind of an interesting one, to be honest. Growing up, I would say that my family we were churchgoers. I wouldn't say that we were devout Christians by any means. My parents never really had those deep conversations, with us. We just kind of went to church because that's what you do. We had a really kind of old school Lutheran church that we went to that, kind of we read just straight out, like the sermons were read from those hymnal books, kind of, the classic old way of doing church. So as, a young kid, like, church to me was boring. I went to Sunday school and we sang the songs about Jesus and this and that. I still remember them to this day, but, I didn't really, I would say, have a personal relationship with Jesus. Even in high school a little bit too. In high school, I was trying, like most kids, trying to figure out who I am as a person and, do I truly matter? And like, does anyone truly care about me? Obviously I knew my family loved me and my friends loved me, but like, on a deeper level, like, what's this kind of all about? Made some mistakes in high school and first couple of years in college. But like I said earlier, when I started meeting with John Peterson, he actually, for the first time in my life, asked me, he's like, have you accepted Jesus Christ as your Lord and Savior? And I kind of sat back and I'm like, no, I hadn't. Like, I had never truly personally taken that moment to truly accept him as my Savior. So I got emotional during that, and he's like, and he goes, I think now would be a perfect time. So during that meeting, my sophomore year, when I was, struggling with, wrestling and things weren't going the way I wanted to, is when I decided to accept Jesus Christ into my life and truly become a Christian, I would say. And yeah, it really helped my mindset, turn things around. I started looking at, all the things that God have been blessing me with in my life. Even though I hadn't gone through a ton of hardships, you know, it still felt good knowing that, God was going to be with me no matter what circumstance in life. So from there, that's actually kind of how I met my wife. My brother and I, my older brother who's at Augsburg with me, started going to FCA meetings, Fellowship Christian Athlete meetings at Augsburg, getting a lot of people. And then they started mentioning a Christian festival in Wilmer at the time called Sunshine. And I never heard like I'd listen to Christian music, but I didn't know that there were that many different kind of bands and artists that were putting out this kind of music. So I was interested. So me and my brother started going, and I think the second or third year I went there, I actually ran into my wife just by chance at a Toby Mac concert. Actually, we just kind of happened to bump into each other. We just started talking during the concert, and found out that she lived in the cities and was going to go to North Central, which was close to Augsburg. I didn't even know North Central was had existed until that point. So we started hanging out, dating, and yeah, I thank God every day that I was able to bump into her at that Toby Mac concert, and dated for a couple of years, got engaged, got married. Um, yeah, and it's been fun to grow together as a couple. Knowing that God's at the center of our relationship. Um, so yeah, that's kind of where my faith journey went. I'm currently in a small group with a bunch of great guys through my church. My wife's in a Bible study. We've done other kind of Bible studies before. I've been in a Bible study with all my brothers in the past. And I think it's important to continue to surround yourself with a community of believers, because we can't do this alone. That's why Christ built the church, because we need a community of believers behind us to support us, because, we're not strong enough to do this alone. And then, yeah, you got God with you, but you need other people with you as well to kind of, speak some wisdom into your life and some truth and, kind of get guidance from. So.
Yeah, that's like I I think your story is so relatable. It's one thing to know about Jesus, right? It's like been to church, I've heard um, you know, the songs and the sermons, but to know Jesus is something different. It's something that actually impacts, gives you joy and gives you purpose and impacts your behavior. Because, I think for a time in my life, I knew about Jesus, but it didn't impact my behavior. And I think, too, what you said is like, it was boring, and a big reason I actually began this podcast is I loved sports so much as a kid. It felt like I didn't belong at my church. Like my sports self had to be different. And the cool thing about the true and living God is like he created sports.
Yeah.
He created comedy. He created good food and good entertainment. And like if you think of like everything good in the world and like sunsets and mountains and oceans, like imagine getting to know the one who created all that good stuff. And it's not boring when you realize that like you can totally be a state champion wrestler and totally love God, and the two are not against each other.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I also learned from John Peterson. He's a big mentor of mine that I can use the gifts that God has given me, the ability to wrestle and compete, and where other people don't have those abilities, and I can use them to glorify God in the best way I can, whether the result is a win or a loss. I can thank God for that opportunity to compete and do something that I love, and just kind of give him the glory no matter, the outcome and the circumstance. So,
Yeah. Yeah, and that's so much more free, especially in wrestling. You think of the mountain of winning and the valley of losing. But when your identity is not attached to a win or a loss, you can do it more freely. And yeah, it still feels good to win,
yeah,
and it still hurts to lose, and that's natural. But when your value as a person is not based on that, it just makes it more enjoyable. So in sports, there are so many life lessons, and we've touched on it a little bit. But if you could pick your favorite life lesson from sports that you've seen impact your life, what would that be, and how have you seen it ring true?
I would say for me, just having that kind of perseverance mindset, knowing that life is tough, but if you have a solid foundation, your faith behind you, you have people around you that love you and care about you, a good support system that um, you know just continue to fight the good fight, run the race, so to speak, and just continue to push forward and always looking to improve no matter what, even if it's just a little bit. I'm in my current small group. We talked about, just changing one habit in our daily lives. Just it doesn't have to be a big thing. Like some of my guys, their daily habit they're changing is, praying before every meal with their wife and kids. It's not a massive win, but it's the little wins that as you stack them up, are gonna be something that, looking back 15 to 20 years, you'll be glad you did. And I think it has to do with just persevering through, those hard times, those times when you are feeling down, you're feeling low, things aren't going right. Instead of looking for a way out and not coping with it the way you should, take it head on. Know that you can get better from this. You will get better from this. It takes time, but just know that if you have a solid foundation in your faith and people around you that support you and love you, that you can get through anything that life throws at you, no matter how hard it is, no matter what it is. You can push through and kind of persevere and become better for it.
Hmm. That's beautiful. I agree, and I love that you shared that. So you are here on the Dear Young Athlete podcast. Every episode we end with completing the statement, Dear Young Athlete. What would you say to your players, to a younger Zach Hansen?
Huh. All right. I would say, dear young athlete, you are enough in the eyes of your Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. And that's what you need to know. You need to hold true to your heart, and know that your circumstance does not define you. Your wins and losses do not define you, but who you are in Jesus defines who you truly are. And that with Him by your side, the sky's the limit for anything you want to achieve in your life.
Amen. Amen. I'm believing and praying that your players are going to hear this, and it could really be transformational for them. So if you are a player hearing it, let this, sink in. Go ask coach, like, coach, tell me more about, your faith or what that is, because having a great coach who loves and cares about you is a privilege that you don't get forever. You get a window, and take full advantage of it. And with that, I think it's a good spot. Do you have any last words you want to share?
No, I appreciate you having me on, and I look forward to this podcast. Speaking to people in their lives, and hopefully you're continuing this for years and years to come. So thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. It's my pleasure. Peace. And there you have it. One more episode in the books of the Dear Young Athlete podcast. Thank you for listening. Again, check out our website, our social media, rate and review us. Make sure you're following, because we have some great episodes coming up that you won't want to miss. I'll see you in the next episode. Peace.